I was on the block with my crew, smoking the weed when police came through. Where is it at? I smell it on you. Searching my pocket, got to stay cool. They wanna say I got a criminal mind, wanna pull me over, give me tickets and fines. I tell the truth when you giving them lies. Smoking the tree, then spitting the rhymes. Creativity flows in my dome. Open my jar, Cali homegrown. Roll my cigar, like to get blown. Feeling the vibe, we like to get stoned. Some trip on us, we gotta grind for it. We from the mountains, to get there, you climb for it. Just sitting here blazing, tripping white Mark Emery's in jail and doing time for it. It's just weed, man, why do you hate? Cause I walked in the store looking like I'm fake. Cause I bought backwoods and I smell like day. Ganja got made it to hear my day. Natural herb medicine, let it heal ya. Here come the red and blue lights to bless me. You're talking negative and people won't feel ya. Yo, Joshua, come tell them that it's just weed. It's just weed. I don't really see the problem. They got promotional. The highest grade of weed we place. You don't know we got weed for days. They say we living in a legal way, but I don't give a fuck what those people say. Hey, need you my blaze a split I feel better. Why should I pay attention to a hater? I don't think that they get the picture. Men don't dope to go the weed from the hater. You don't know we have to stack up the paper. Money pile up now, not later. If there was a ganja town, I'd be the mayor. But I love to inhale the ganja paper. So when the fight will come and look me, I have to eat up a ganja cookie. And what they think I'm some kind of rookie. In the 10 by 10 cell, they want me for me. What are you smoking if you are smoking marijuana? You're killing my life, can't hold me down, yo, I'm still in the sky. You must be dripping on something if you think this herb should be criminalized. Maybe you should give it a try, yeah. You know what? I don't feel tripping, it's just weed. I think it's time to bring in DJ Ignite and nice y'all on this cannabis culture.
Walk with me through the valley of the trees. Ven conmigo, caminamos por aquí. Préndelo luego, pásamelo aquí. Up in 420, but started at 215. ¿Por qué te molesto? Toma prueba esto. Te duele, te alivia. Esta es la fuerza, sonrío, apesto. Smelling like a skunk, he stinks, he smells. Always giggling his stuff. Prescription for me, I'm not addicted like a drug. Dedicated to the fullest when I'm tearing it up. Chilling with the dodo, puffing Joshua Tree. The book of Joe's coming, most definitely. When it crumbles, I better have me some seeds. Water in the sun and we can grow free. La planta presenta, despierta la gente. Con un toquecito relaja la mente.
What are you smoking if you are smoking marijuana? You're killing my life, can't hold me down, yo, I'm still in the sky. You must be dripping on something if you think this herb should be criminalized. Maybe you should give it a try, yeah.
Welcome to the show, a little Mendo Dope with us. It's just weed. That's fucking right. I mean, you know, we were talking before we came on the show today. What the fuck is going on? I mean, California's busting people. Raids have started again. The federal government will not relinquish their war on drugs no matter what. So we'll talk about that a little bit tonight. We have special guest tonight, Dr. Allison Justice. She'll be talking about lighting technology and different stuff. Growmau5 is in the house, old friend of ours.
Thanks for having me.
You're so welcome, dude. Have some cool ideas. I don't have my headphones on because I have so many people in the channel. I'm in the studio, but so I'll just work the volume so we don't bleed through too much. I'm sorry. In the channel tonight, we have Nadeem.
What up, guys?
He's with Bake Brothers. They're a local company that make an amazing candy that I like a lot. And also, would you call it a syrup?
Pourable THC syrup.
Pourable THC syrup, which we kind of like because I don't drink. You don't drink. We don't drink. So we don't drink. You can have a cocktail, which is a cannabis cocktail. I like it a lot. Of course, also in the channel tonight, my girl hanging out with us tonight. We've been having a blast this weekend. We hung out with my brother, I call him my baby brother. He picked me up from across the room. We've had a good time and a really good time for you weed nerds that have been watching us. And if you get a chance tomorrow to hang out, make sure you catch us live. You guys like my stories and shit. Well, my brother can tell you stories about being in the Sea of Cortez and fucking tiger shark almost eat his ass. So he has really good fucking stories. Navy diver, ex-Navy diver, and runs a corporation now in North Carolina. Can you say what you do, bro?
What's that?
Can you say what you do? Can you say who you work for? I don't want to bust you out. You work for a big company.
I'm a plant engineer at a large chemical manufacturer.
There you go. That works. So he works with a lot of machines and like shit that you don't even understand.
Plant engineering.
Yeah, I mean, giant shit. They make something and they make a fucking lot of it. So he works with huge machines that break down, and he has to deal with all kind of crazy shit, crazy hours and shit. And actually, it's kind of cool that I like to tell the story. If you guys haven't heard me, me and my brother are 5 years apart, and for some reason we're just different people. And we've always been friends and we loved each other. We've never been close because we just were into different shit. And once I grew up, and once he grew up, after he got a little older, he got into cannabis to relax. And when he got into cannabis to relax, it gave us a bond. It's pretty neat. I mean, you smoke Time Wreck on the East Coast?
Oh, absolutely. Oh, yeah. I get your breeds or strains every now and then. And, you know, sometimes the people growing know what they're doing. Sometimes they don't. I got some Time Wreck, and the guy definitely knew what he was doing. Right. It was off the hook.
So imagine what an honor it is to, you know, hey, bro, I started burning. And by the way, I got some of your Time Wreck.
Absolutely.
It's fucking cool as shit. So it's a small, small world. And he came out to hang out with me. He got to work in the garden last night. We did we trim one of the things we're doing is we trim cover crop, both cover crop and cannabis leaves off the bottom, and then we make a slurry with it with a juicer, and then we feed it to our plants.
And is that what I just saw?
We did that, and then we also did at the same time we did a dragonfly earth medicine. So it's a Fowler tea, not a Fowler tea. It's got alfalfa and stuff. So we brewed it all night.
It looks like its own micro environment down there.
And he asked me why you do cover crop. There's many reasons to do a cover crop. One of the main reasons is if you look at a plant that has no cover crop, the soil is basically it's like packed, you know, and there's just not really a lot of echo going on there. And once you put a cover crop in and you put some worms in there and you put lasagna in there, that big giant pot becomes almost like the earth in a sense. One of the things I did want to talk about, one of the things that me and Dredd are learning as far as watering, a lot of people were really fucking with us because they said because you're indoors, the plant's not going to dry out or not going to dry out, and you're going to get root rot. Because outdoors, let's face it, I mean, the fucking sun is cooking everything, and so the plants dry out. So what we're doing is we're carefully measuring the water, meaning that we put just what we think the water should be, and then we actually lift the pot up in the air and put our hand underneath it, feel it, touch it. So right now on top of the hydroton rocks, the plants are slightly moist, meaning your hand comes back with just a little teeny moisture on it, but they're not wet at all. And so we're keeping the plants in that state. This week, we're going to raise the temperature in the CO2 level to about 78 to 80 degrees and CO2 levels to 1,500 parts per million. So it's going to be cool to watch those plants just take off. So that's what's going on in the pool. We're super happy about everything. Dredd has to caulk the doors, and we have to get the power changed. So 400 amp panel, we got 3 bids last week. We know we're going to need the power in the summer. But what happened now when the carpenter put up all the walls, I had him put in some outlets for fans and not for lights, but for just shit, hydro pumps, air stones, etc. And yesterday we started tripping breakers anytime we use, coffee pots and shit. So apparently everything's on the same circuit. So I've got an electrician coming out next week, and he'll separate every single plug out there on a ground fault and run it back to a 15 amp breaker. And then in the next week or two, we're going to upgrade to a 400 amp panel. So
sounds expensive, Sub.
Oh, fuck, dude. Yeah. Do you know how much solar costs, Mouse?
I have an idea. I can't afford it.
$69,000. And then you get tax rebates and shit till you get back. It only costs you $45,000. So I'm getting all excited, right? Hell yeah, fuck yeah. I'm going to get me 15,000 kW. And I didn't know that you can't pick on me, Mouse. I didn't know the math for a kilowatt hour per year. It's a simple formula, but I just didn't know it. So the guy's like, oh yeah, watts times hour. I was like, okay, this is easy. So my grow room uses 62,500 kilowatt hours a year. So 15,000 is like farting at it or something. But I was going to ask you before we get into the intros and everything, because I'm rambling. I mean, if I buy a 15,000 kW system with tax credits and everything, and I get $45,000, and I pay myself back in a 3 to 4 year period of time, it makes sense to do so. But here's the killer. Arizona Power is called SRP.
SRP and APS.
Yeah, they fucking fine you on peak days. So if you use their power on peak days, they fuck you. It can be $600 for one day if you go to 40 kilowatts. So I'm having a hard time extrapolating whether I should put solar in the house.
You know, well, I don't know how it is in Arizona, but you know, if you have a 15,000 kilowatt system, that doesn't mean you have the ability to generate 15 kilowatt hours a day. You know, it's something probably in Arizona, it's on the higher end, like 18 to 20% of that, you know, per day. But, you know, you got to factor all this shit in, dude. You got to factor all this in. And then you really got to take an honest look. Is it worth it? You know, when you compare that to the cost of LEDs, son.
Yeah, don't go there. You're not putting LEDs in the pool, man. But seriously, if I can take 15,000 kilowatts away from the 62.5, that's a mathematical number. So I'm just having a hard time figuring out what's worth it. But yes, the sun shines here 360 days a year. It is ridiculous how much sun shines. But Mouse, this is the cool shit, okay? And you know you're going to want one. The second guy that came to sell me, they all cost the same thing. I don't even know why you called somebody. It's like $2.83 a kilowatt. And I was like, okay, whatever. But he had this case. It was about 4x4 and foot, and you open it up, and it was 2 giant solar panels on it, and it had USB connectors on it, and it power a refrigerator and a computer and a stereo. You just lay it out in the front yard and hook a drop cord to it, and they're $3,500. What a cool device, man. I mean,
all you need is that in a van, dude, and you're living the dream.
I love it. All right. Well, I want to welcome our guests one more thing I got to get what's growing on. I got my driver's license today. I got my birth certificate from Georgia. If you don't know, it takes up to 3 months to get your birth certificate from Georgia.
Oh,
I mean, it's unreal.
2 months from Texas. So
it's unreal. You know, it's ridiculous. It's the same shit, you know. So I got it. So I got my driver's license and I went and got my med card. And I was really disappointed in the med card system here in Arizona. And you're going to say, well, what's up? You're legal. You got legal. Why are you mad? It's just such a shame. You know, I walk in, I say hi. Well, why do you need cannabis? Well, I have a progressive fatal illness and it causes super bad anxiety and sleep problems. She goes, stop. You can only talk about your back problem. I was like, this bitch is leading me. Like, and that was it. We talked about my back problem and they gave me my med script.
I think it's a constant battle on trying to get more qualifying conditions here in Arizona. You know, we're
no PTSD.
We're working for autism as well. You know,
autism, and
hopefully we'll see some progress with that.
But it's incredulous that we can't talk about autism or
PTSD. You know, which could be anything. PTSD doesn't have to be military related.
My fire pretty much fucked my head up.
Yeah.
I mean, it did. Yeah, I didn't realize it until later in life. But yeah. My dog has PTSD from the fire. But yeah, for the government, and we'll talk about this a little bit later after the break, but for the government to keep ignoring it just drives me crazy. But let's get to the meat of the show. Tonight, we're going to talk about lights. Lighting is really important right now. I'm running 8 1,000-watt Solus-Techs. I'm also running some LED cobs and I call it light break technology. That's insult, but that's what I call it. And I have a really cool setup now where I'm using two spectrums of LED in a veg area. And Mouse can talk about this a little bit more when we get to him, but I actually am a believer. I was busting your chops earlier, Mouse. I'm a huge believer in LED in bedrooms now, no matter what setup. I mean,
is belief a prerequisite of science, though? I mean, belief, I think no one can talk, like whether it's, you know, Allison or myself, you know, we may be authorities in our own right, but no matter what we say, we're not going to be able to talk anyone into anything. I think when it comes to cannabis, you just have to see it for yourself. But hopefully this show will allow some people that are skeptical to open their mind a little bit and, you know, maybe dip that first little toe into LED, because what, you know, Sub, how many freaking decades have you been growing with HID?
A lot. And I'll tell you straight up, the 3 cobs we're running in that little veg hallway are kicking ass on my 10 Scarlet Queens. They look as good as any 1,000-watt Hortilux Blue 1000, short in a node space, and they look phenomenal in that. What was that thing? It's 300 watts, right? 3 cobs is that right? 300 watts.
Probably about there, yeah. 300.
I don't have any heat issues. Yes. I'm not going to the big room yet, but for veg, you got to be crazy. Why was I running 600 more watts? That's kind of stupid at this point. So, all right. So as I said tonight, Growmau5 is in the house. You guys know him, a good friend of ours. Resident panelist on the Grow2 Roundtable and has been on my show several times. Tonight we also have Dr. Allison Justice. She is PhD in Plant and Environmental Science from Clemson University. After graduation, she started business teaching commercial greenhouse operators how to breed their own nematodes for pest control and joined Outco Company as vice president for cultivation. Through research, Allison is elevating the standards of cannabis cultivation both indoors and in greenhouse settings. She has done an intensive study with Fluence Bioengineering of LED lights and how it affects cannabis plants on every level. Welcome to the show, Allison.
Thanks for having me.
So let's talk about what we were just talking about. Let's just get into it. So as you know, I mentioned before, I'm running Solus Tech 1000 DEs over a pool, but we know once the plants get big, we're going to get dark in the pool. So I want to design LED technology down inside the pool to keep my cover crop and my plants alive. So tell us about what your theory of lighting altogether. Just talk about what you know about lighting and think about lighting for cannabis.
All right. So I guess, when I first joined the cannabis industry, because I've been here 2 years, I'm a fish. I'm new to cannabis, but, I went to school for flowers. So, I've been growing flowers since I was 2 years old. But, in horticultural science and big ag, if you want to call it that, they've been using LEDs for many years, whether it's microgreens or supplemental lights in greenhouses. And, when I joined Outco, I asked the guys, the cultivators that were there already, and, some of the other cannabis growers I know, why are people not using LEDs? Why are you guys not using LEDs? And, the answer was not necessarily based around science. It was just like, can't be done, can't be done. It's like, well, have you tried it? And they're like, yeah, once. And I think the problem comes in where, when you're growing under LEDs, really, really high light intensity, much cooler light, doesn't cool the room or doesn't heat the room as much. And then, the amount of heat radiation coming from the lights is much different on the canopy. So there's that little bit of growth, cultivation knowledge or techniques that you have to change when you're switching to different lights. So, a lot of times when people try it for the first time, they fail, and not because they're not good growers, but because it's a learning curve they have to do. I mean, I know when I put our cannabis plants under LEDs, I fried them the first time. I'm happy to admit that. Even, with using a par meter and getting my numbers, it still happen. But, after tweaking some things, we were able to really, really increase our yield and save a lot of power. And I've teamed up with Fluence, and not because I think one brand's better than the other. I'm sure there's a lot of good LED companies out there, but I knew Josh, their horticultural scientist, we were in grad school at the same time. So, I knew he wanted to do science and I wanted to do science. So, we teamed up, and that's why I've been working with them basically. Oh, I can't hear you.
You're muted, Subby.
Sorry. Growmau5 mentioned science, and we want to really stick along those lines. So the first thing I want to ask you is specific, because I have an idea, but you're a fucking doctor. So how much light, how much intensity does cannabis need? Like, let's say per square foot, how much light does cannabis need to grow properly?
I think there's a big range there.
Okay.
You have to consider cultivars. So for our big project, we use Hazy OG. And we found it's a light-loving plant, light-loving cultivar. We thought we were doing the upper end of intensity at 1,200 micromoles. And, it was a linear increase going from 400 micromoles to 1,200 micromoles. We still weren't burning the plants. We were still seeing increased yield. So we potentially could go up to 1,500 micromoles, and it's still increased yield. But then you have to start consider the power to produce quite that much. So to get 1,200 micromoles, we were using a 1,000-watt LED fixture.
Okay, so is that, can you, for my dumb ass, so I was always thinking that like cannabis needs 40 to 60 watts per square foot to perform. How does that measure to micromoles?
That's the problem, isn't it, Allison? I mean, we're not even talking the same language. And Sub, this is no judgment towards you, man.
I get it, man.
It's two different languages. Watts is a unit of of cost. It's not a unit. Watts isn't a unit of what you get in simple terms. It's a unit of what, it's an input, you know? And so when you say how many watts do I have to put in, that has almost no bearing on what the plants receive in terms of micromole output. And micromoles is something, isn't it, Allison, that like we're still having to kind of educate people on even what it is and what it means.
Absolutely. Yeah, you're done. So, you know, when I talk about light, I talk about PAR, you know, what the plant needs and what the plant receives. You know, I've actually just had to learn how that correlates with watts because of, you know, that for me, that's something new. We've always just kind of looked at light levels versus wattage.
All right, well, let's, because there's all 163 people pretty much are watching the pool project. So let's use this as a lab example. Okay, so in the old days, I ran standard single and high pressure sodium lights. And everybody knows I get 2.5 to 3 pounds per quad. And in the pool, I want big plants, so I went with the Solitex 1000 DEs. And obviously they're higher and all that, and that's not even where I'm going. So, but my concept is, because I'm 12 foot off the growing canopy now, I need a ton of light. So I've got 8,000 freaking watts out there. So if I was to convert this to LED in any form, if I put those LEDs up high in the ceiling like that, it sounds like to me that the penetration is going to lack. So I would need more coverage. So am I even on track? Can you kind of tell me how you would use LEDs in a giant room, or even better, if we talk about that, my warehouse here in Arizona is 40,000 square foot. So it's got 196 1,000 watt DE lights in it. So how would you convert something like this, a commercial application, to LEDs?
So, I mean, you would have to get the LEDs closer to the plant. You would have to rig something up to, you know, not go from the ceiling, or have ropes where you're lowering it closer to the canopy. Because, I mean, you're right, they don't necessarily penetrate quite as far. But that's where you're getting your benefit, though, is you're spending less in heat. You're lowering the lights to the canopy. You're able to get that higher light intensity, but not burn the plants because it's physically closer to the canopy. So yeah, I mean, you would have to get it closer to the plants.
Yeah, there's something that excuse me, unless you're in a grow tent, you know, any room, any 10 by 10 bedroom or small warehouse, or even a large warehouse, is always fighting the inverse square law of lighting, you know, which says that the density that you're going to receive at the canopy has these different factors, and they're exponentially less dense as you go a distance, right? So 1 feet away versus 2 feet away is going to be like a quarter of the light or a 16th of the light of these factors, right? And so the way these large commercial apps get away from that and have the lights 12 feet above the plants is because 100% of that ceiling in that warehouse is covered in lighting. And contrary to like some misconception about the inverse square law, photons don't disappear. They just become less dense at distance. Unless you can fill the whole space with photons. The only way a photon gets absorbed by a plant, but when it bounces off a wall, it loses a little energy, but then it just slings right back into the plant. So I think the challenge you're going to have, Sub, is because you have that perimeter walkway around your pool that is not technically canopy space, and your lighting is sort of concentrated over this canopy with this large perimeter. I think what you're going to find is to achieve a really nice density with any lighting, whether it be what you have or LEDs, you might want to consider some kind of baffles, some kind of large panel reflectors, either mounted to the ceiling or something like that. But Allison's spot on. You know, to run LEDs in your room, you can leverage that. You know, you can kind of trick that inverse square law by pushing less watts closer, you know, and achieve that same PPFD. But, you know, canopy uniformity in terms of lighting and full coverage is kind of how the commercial ops are getting around that, if that makes sense.
No, I can see it totally in that. So in my mind, I'm drawing all kind of shit as you guys are talking. I mean, because you could build frames and hang them down or around the plants. The biggest benefit I see is air conditioning. I mean, in Arizona, I have 15 tons of air conditioning in a residential house because I'm going to go pot in it. I'm ready for June. But I can already tell you that the veg room that I have now with the cobs in it, I don't even have the air conditioner on. I mean, it's great. It's the ambient temperature is taking care of it, not in summer. So I see the benefit there. But and I'm not trying to be an ass here. We got to talk about this. The one benefit, the one thing that stops us always is cost, because to put, if I build a custom frame around each one of these giant trees with LEDs coming in from the sides and the top, that's going to be a larger investment than one light. So in a long term, are you going to save enough on air conditioning? Are you going to save enough on replacement bulbs? Because I know you don't have to replace LED bulbs like you do DEs. How does this run on you understand what I'm saying? How does the cost factor, bigger investment up front, but more payoff?
I think in short, and Allison, I want to pop this over to you in a second, because obviously Outco is a business, right? I mean, you have like businesses, they need to make money to pay people's wages, but I think Subcool, you'd probably be well advised to just go onto Google and find a template for an ROI calculator. Just a general ROI calculator, right? And it's going to have different sections. It's going to have fixed costs. You're not necessarily going to be depreciating this. Maybe you will be. I don't know what the structure is in Arizona, whether you can depreciate these large purchases, but you're going to have to put that new 200 amp or 400 amp panel in there as a fixed cost, right? And then that's going to be amortized over the years or whatever. You're going to have to put that HVAC in there, that additional tonnage that you're going to need. You're going to have to put that in as a fixed cost, as a whole cost, and as let's say you could do it with 5 tons with LED, but it's going to take 14 tons with HPS. You gotta break that all out, and then you have to look at your cost on a monthly basis for electric and your bulb replacement costs. Okay, this is assuming that you can get equal yields with LED and HPS, right? So you're gonna have to work those costs out. But I propose, and what I've proved on my YouTube channel, and what Dr. Justice has shown, is that you can actually increase yields with less watts of LED, less HVAC, and all that stuff. And that's the challenge, So Allison, like at Outco, what's up with the yields? Are you getting the yields from LED?
We are. And, I just want everybody to keep in mind this big study was with one variety. And, we did it in numbers that made, statistical relevance. But, what we found was that, and my boss is looking at me, and it was a facility with existing HPS rooms, and he's saying, we paid $130 something per light, and you're trying to convince me to pay $1,200, over $1,200 per fixture, take out something that we already have set, we already have plants growing in, and you're trying to convince me why we should do this. And so obviously it took a lot of work and a lot of time to convince him of that. But for, as you said, we were able to prove that ROI, and it made sense. We have 3 grow rooms, 2 have been converted over to LEDs, 1's still HPS. The HPS, just because of that distance we have to keep, we're able to get 7, maybe 800 micromoles at canopy, and that's for a 1,000-watt fixture. But with LEDs, we're able to get between 900 to 1,000 micromoles with a 660-watt fixture. So we look at that power usage, we look at the amount of light intensity, and with that light intensity, we were able to get 30% more in yield.
I also have a dumb question. Is a 600-watt LED fixture put out less heat than a 600-watt HID fixture, just straight? The same power.
Mouse, you correct me if I'm wrong. I'm not an electrician or light electrical expert. I've been learning, but I think it's 1 for 1. A watt's a watt.
Yeah, but I'm talking about heat.
BTU.
Heat.
I think it creates the same BTU. It's just different. It's not directed down into the canopy. It's filtered up.
Okay.
Is that right?
You're right. I mean, physics is physics, right? A watt consumed at the wall produces 3.412 BTUs of heat. But there's a little bit of a nuance there, and I don't know specifically about the 600, but I know that a standard DE bulb, like a Philips DE or whatever Gavita uses, 15.3% of that energy is emitted in that IR infrared band. So when Allison was talking earlier about these tweaks that you have to make, temperature is one of them, because IR heat, that's what you feel, when you're in your house and it's 72 degrees in air conditioning and you stand next to a window and your face feels hot, that's IR. you know, and that's what the plants feel. And IR is this really long wavelength light, you know, really long wavelength light. So it has the ability to penetrate things. And if you ever look under like a forward-looking infrared camera, you know, that's how you can see animals' footprints in the mud and stuff like that. It, you know, IR, it gets left behind in the drywall, in the ebb and flow trays, in the pots and stuff like that. So it is accurate, you know, within the laws of physics that it's a 1-for-1 thing. But LHGs just run cooler, baby. They just they do, you know, and they don't project the heat down. They project the heat up.
So do LEDs end up do they burn off more water or evaporate more water? Do you need more dehues when you?
Now that's something I'm gonna send over to Allison, because her research on secondary metabolites, accessory pigments, the stuff that is, you know, all throughout the spectrum that HPS is just completely missing. You know, that's her realm, right, Allison?
Yeah. So, you know, what we found was as you increase light, no matter LED, HPS, you increase your yield. But the interesting thing we found that, you know, looking at secondary metabolites, cannabinoids, we got a statistically relevant higher number with the LEDs versus, no matter the intensity, versus the HPS. And we associated that potentially with the spectrum that was projected from the HPS versus the LED. We've been looking at studies we've been conducting studies the last couple of months looking at LEDs, same intensity, but different spectrum. And so, you know, hopefully we'll have some sort of data for that soon, but nothing in stone yet. Another interesting thing, though, is it didn't affect terpenes between the two types of lights, no matter the intensity.
And as a grower, I've always thought, Mouse, can you do me a favor while I quit insulting the shit out of you? What do you call the white bright light? What do you call it? Is it a diode light? What do you call it?
It's like what Allison alluded to earlier. Like, it's blurple, man. That's what the American profiteers in 2008 and 2009 were importing containers of this China light bright shit, and these people that were very open minded at the time bought it. Right? It's like red and blue only. It's if you see my screen, it's hitting the blue peak and the red peak, and they got burned, man. They spent $2,000 on this, what is now $200 on Amazon. A lot of people just call it blurple because it's blue and red mixed purple. It's
okay. Mine's got white in it, and it's also got these crazy UV things on the side. I don't know. It was given to me for Christmas, but I will tell you this: historically, when I run LEDs over a plant, I swear it makes more resin. And it's just always kind of been a thing we talk about. You know, I don't know if it's because the plant's cooler or what, but so one of the reasons I want to do the combo thing, Mouse and Allison, is because I do believe if I mix some LED under the canopy and around the canopy, it would be good. And the only reason I wouldn't entertain putting, I'm bouncing all over the place. By the way, my design pool grow room is designed to hang any light I want. I could take 2 Solistechs out in an hour and put up LEDs. I mean, it's designed for me to play. It's not designed to make money. We're giving all the weed away, and we're making sauce for me and my friends and RSO. So this is not one of those things where I'm sitting around the calculator going, well, I've got to have so many grams a watt. But I can hang anything I want to in there in these big giant quads over the pool, and we can all take a look at it together. That's what's cool about it. We can look in the back of the room and go, okay, these are fucking Solistechs, and these are Gavitas, and these are LEDs. So having said that, I believe that this combination of some LEDs around the sides of the pool shining into the body of the plant and then overheads is going to be an incredible spectrum. Am I crazy for thinking this way?
I don't think so. There's a lot of tomato growers that do intercanopy lighting, and you know they get much bigger yields from it.
I love it. I can't wait.
I think I've got this screen up, Subcool, and this comes from the Osram website, a German LED manufacturer that is now doing some more research as German laws have gotten a little bit more lenient towards cannabis. And this shows probably a lot more lines than what the audience and maybe yourself are used to seeing. You know, we usually see chlorophyll A and B on the left and chlorophyll A and B on the right, and that's all that's been talked about in the books. You know, when I bought my first book, I popped on a hoodie. I went into this little bookshop called Oat Willie's. It was this, you know, this old little pipe shop. And I came out with this book in a brown paper bag, and it showed this graph of chlorophyll A and B. And I just thought that was gospel. But, you know, when we start looking at more in vivo, in plant studies, we see that all these accessory pigments are helping chlorophyll and helping these secondary metabolites, like Allison was saying, basically make the plant grow faster and make it more potent with I guess with the exception of terpenes. That's a revelation to me. I hope we can talk more about that. But no, you're not crazy. And it goes way beyond belief into science, where it's just scientifically and empirically proven that if you provide a nice balanced spectrum, a nice balanced diet of photons, you're activating machinery in our cannabis plants that's just helping it grow faster and grow better. I'm excited about
the project. I mean, it's fun because, again, I can mix anything I want to out there and see what's going on. And resin is really my thing. I mean, if you guys don't pay attention now, as Dredd says, I don't smoke the bush, man. Only the resin, you know. So that's what I want is resin. So I wanted to ask Dr. Allison a question. And I ask everybody that's smart this question. So I've always used CO2 in my bud rooms, and I've always gotten great results. I'm very happy with my product always, but I've always wondered, everybody says you have to raise the temperature in a grow room when you add CO2 to open up the stem in a plant, and I get incredible results from running 78 to 80, and the reason I don't want to run hotter than that is because I believe, I don't care what a book says, I don't care what anybody in this channel says, I believe if you run your grow room over 80 degrees, you invite bugs. Every damn time I run my grow room in the 80s and 90s, I've invited bugs in my room. So I just want to discuss real quickly with lighting technology, with using the proper amount of light. When you use CO2, do you think it's needed to raise the temperature, or do you even know anything about this?
Yeah, as temperature increases, you know, the ability to the plant to use that CO2 increases. So, you know, the higher, what's the word? Growth response curve. I'm trying to think back into grad school. You know, the faster the you're laughing.
I don't know either.
Right, the faster the plant's growing. I wish I had it to pull it up, the graph to pull it up. But you know, the faster the plant's growing, which is a metric of temperature, faster metabolism, the more it can take advantage of that higher CO2 to grow faster. So yeah, if you do have it at a higher temperature, it can use that CO2 efficiently. Okay. But that's not to say at a little bit lower temperature, it cannot also benefit from higher CO2.
That's what I wanted to hear, because I don't like bugs. All right, let's take it away from the pool. We've talked about that enough. So let's take it down to the average American grower, in my opinion. The person that's just got his med card, and he can grow 6 plants, and he's either got a tent or a small closet. I will tell you guys something. And Dredd, if Dredd was here, he would agree with me. And I'm not dogging tent people or anybody. I have a fucking hard time growing pot in a tent. I mean, we bought a gorilla tent here, and we did some small vegging in it. We were using it as a temporary source, and in the end, we took it down today. It's not my thing. But Cobb's LED lighting is awesome for it. I can tell you that we ran a purple punch in a gorilla tent here under 3 Cobbs. And I'll go ahead and I got to give him a shout out. Timber Lighting is the guy who sent me this little rail. He built me a rail, and I hung it in the tent, and I got amazing results from this little light, and now I've got it over in the bedroom doing a good job. So, I mean, this is where it's going, though, in America. Cannabis right now is over $20 a gram in the dispensaries. Fuck, who can afford that? I mean, it's insane. So I think you guys are going to see a surge in LED lighting and smaller grow technology. So, well, you know, what is the main benefit there? Is it lack of heat? Because heat's what we battle as growers.
I think so. I mean, it's efficiency. It's more for less, right? Why do people buy Toyota Priuses? It's not because it has a 55-gallon gas tank in it, right? That's the watts. If you use the car analogy, the size of the gas tank is the watts. That's the input. It's the efficiency of the engine, the miles per gallon that gets you further. So when you say I need to drive from Arizona to California, your first question is what car has the biggest gas tank, right? Your question is, if I need to go there efficiently, which car has the best MPG? And that's what LEDs offer, is a better MPG, using less to produce the same or more. And, you know, a lot of people in apartments, speaking for myself, my last apartment, I had a 1.5 ton, you know, those little apartment units where the bathroom has like a 6-foot ceiling and there's this noisy AC in there. It's a 1.5 ton piece of crap, right? So like if I'm talking about using 3,412 BTUs for a Thowie, I mean, that's like a big chunk of my HVAC for my whole damn apartment. So, that's where LEDs come in. It's great for small spaces. It's efficient, requires less HVAC, and it delivers more, and maybe Allison can put us up on like the micromoles per joule and that there's a number. There's a number that tells you how big your gas tank is and how far you can go. And there's a number there for lighting, and it's micromoles per joule or ppf per watt. And it says, if I take a watt in, I'm going to give you this many photons. And that's what we really need to start talking about. Now, I think you've made a good purchase with the Solace Tech. They're one of the higher end. With single-ended, they're like 1.3 micromoles of photons out per watt in or joule in. You're at 1.7. So you're in the higher end of, the HID technology. I think Allison, they were running about 2.2 or 2.3 micromoles per joule. So it's a much bigger conversion factor, right, Allison?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. But, going back to the home grower, I've done it both ways. I've done it with a HPS and a tent, which, to be honest, is hell because it is. I mean, you're either pumping out heat into your apartment and then you're trying to let your home HVAC take care of that, or you've got a little system set up and it sucks.
It does.
But you throw a 600 watt LED in a tent and you run it at full strength. You lower it to your canopy. You get really nice, high PPFD, and you can grow a good plant and basically have a fan that pumps out the humidity and you're good to go. Like that's it. The price per fixture is going to probably surprise you, but after, if you consider ROI, if you consider doing this for a couple of years, it'll be worth it.
Do you think LEDs will ever kind of get more competitive and lower in price over time? Because I think that's people's biggest initial setback when wanting to make the transition is not understanding the spectrums and understanding that, yeah, sure, it's a little bit more ante up front, but your ROI and over time is going to be better than, an HPS.
Yeah, and after talking to some of the LED companies, they're confident that within the next couple of years, the price will drop significantly.
Definitely.
But
they're going to make the choice. I mean, that's going to make the choice. This 80,000 square foot building we're in, I don't care what the ROI is. These guys are not going to buy fucking 80,000 square foot of LED lights. They're just not. They're. I don't care what they might build a room for you, so you can show them how badass it is. But technology, and I said it when I started, I want to go back to that because a lot of people watch me every day. If you're using 1,000 watt metal halide in your bedroom, you guys know my favorite light is a Hortilux blue. You guys know, and it gets the chips in it. So we all know about that. It flakes off the bulb and gets those little white chips in it. The Hortilux guys just get a complete pass on it from me forever. I'm telling you right now, I'm running 3 cobs in my bedroom, and the results are just as good or better. I can't say it any stronger than that.
The Hortilux Blue, I was talking about this on Instagram the other day. I wasn't always all LED. And in fact, if you just go back less than 2 years ago, my first season on YouTube, my room was half HPS and half LED. And I couldn't afford it, man. Like I did have what was before Fluence was Fluence. They were a company called BML, and I had a BML. And it was expensive, dude. I had the smaller one. I couldn't even afford the bigger one. And I had to see for myself. And it just didn't make sense. Like, how can I get this thing on Amazon for $200? And then this other thing that's like $1,200 is going to be so much better. But, it went from pulling a half a pound to 20 freaking ounces. Mm-hmm. So I made my money back first shot. Now, that was in Texas. Obviously, prices are much higher. But I think, it goes back to what I was showing that graph, man. Hortilux blue bulbs are so good because they engage these other pigments, chlorophyll A and B with the blue spike with that additional blue. But they engage all this other stuff, this other photosynthetic machinery that just makes the plant grow faster. So, I bought those iPower bulbs from Amazon. They're like $20 or whatever. And you're just going to lose if a Hortilux is 120 and this Amazon bulb's 20, you're going to lose way over that $100 difference over just one run. And that's what people need to understand, especially about blue light when they're talking about HPS, a really orange heavy spectrum.
Okay. A question, by the way, Urban Farmer in the chat also said, Avery, welcome, guys. Love you guys. Is there any way that you could take, this is a stupid question. Is there any way though you could put some type of rheostat or something on an LED fixture where you could change the spectrum from 3100 to 4000, so you wouldn't need different spectrums? Could you just dial it to more red or blue, or that's not even close?
There are LEDs out there that you can change the spectrum, but at the end of the day, I guess what gets me is I wouldn't even know exactly which spectrum to use at exactly which week of flower. Okay. So I'm kind of waiting for that data to come out to tell me if it's worth having a fixture that's dimmable, or not dimmable, but that you can manipulate.
I've run a couple of different spectrums of cobs. I've run and I may get numbers wrong. My memory's terrible, but I think I was running like a 4000 and also a 3100. Does that sound right, Mouse, with a cob?
Yeah, that's a good balance of that high energy blue and then that photon rich red.
Yeah, and I definitely saw better results with the red and flower. I used them both different ways. I mixed them in well, but so I would definitely want to change over that. So, but I do think, I'm going back to the tent grow. The biggest thing that Allison talked about, and she's dead on, when you put a tent in a bedroom and you try to exhaust heat out of a HPS light, it's shitty. The bedroom's always hot and your air conditioner's always running. So LED technology is definitely there. I can tell you that my 3 LED rack was $660, or more than a smaller fixture. But I can also tell you it's like bulletproof. And one of the funny thing about it is we've moved the son of a bitch 10 times since we moved to this house, because we started in a closet and then we got a grow tent, and we built a pool room, then we built a corridor. And I like it. I mean, I like the light a lot. The fins and everything keep it nice and cool. So I will continue to use it in veg, and I recommend everybody else do the same. Check it out. Get you something small to start with. I wanted to mention to both of you guys, if you can see behind me, the two lights in the ceiling, they are changing color. I think this is the coolest fucking technology in history. I'd like to be a salesman for the Philips Hue company. These fucking things can make any color, any shade. They dance to music. I'm assuming the life expectancy on them is like 15,000 hours. What cool. Now it's a $50 light bulb. Edison would be like, holy shit. But yeah, if you don't know about these things, you can put them in your house. You can program to your phone. Awesome. Yeah, I like it. Mood lighting, only way to go. And like I say, you can put them on your phone and they dance to the movies and shit. So incredible technology, which I'm going somewhere. I broke one of the son of a bitches, taken out of the box. And it's got this plastic gel thin membrane inside the glass, and then the bulb itself is just a circuit board. So you know anything about this stuff, Mouse? Is it making the colors on this coating? Or is
I have some of those actually, and the Philips Hue is very, very cool. Very cool. Obviously, the white part on the outside that you broke is just a diffuser. And then inside of that, there's some silicon for IP, like water resistant rating. And then on the circuit board, it's very simple. There's it's just it's RGB. There's a red diode, a green diode, and a blue. And perhaps your model also has a white diode. That's something you're seeing a lot now. It's RGBW. And with that palette, an artist can make any color for painting or for LED light or whatever. And so that's what it does. That's how when you dial that wheel, it gives more current or voltage to those different colors to make the different colors. But on the topic of different colors, I just want to go back to something. I think that's kind of what I'm dedicating my life to is LED is a drug, dude. Once you kind of get a little bit of it in your system, and you start having some success and stuff, you get to this point where you determine how much LED you need to be successful. And you're happy for a while, but then you're still chasing the dragon. You're chasing the dragon. And I think Spectrum is where you can kind of keep chasing the dragon for another couple of years. And that's kind of what my company, ChillTech, does. And what we need to do. And there's another company out there called Heliospectra out of Europe that's done this, but the lights are so GD expensive that the community is very small. But there needs to be a community where people, doctors, research scientists like Allison, myself, others can get on and say, hey, show us your grow log. Maybe it's anecdotal, maybe it's empirical, but here's the spectra that I used during early growth phase, budding, senescence, flush. And this is, I got it tested and here's what happened. And we, get a community. And that's what we aim to do at ChillTech over the next probably year and a half is we have some technology we need to implement to make our controller that currently adjusts spectra, red, UV, blue, all that stuff. But we need to develop some connectivity to the internet to make those profiles uploadable so that you can talk about it with your friends. I like a site. Maybe this is a poor comparison, but like Leafly, you could put your strains up on Leafly, and it's sort of a community thing where people review it and say, "Oh, I had that experience with PTSD. Oh, I had the opposite." And there's a dialogue there, a conversation. And I think, like going back to what Allison was saying, that's really what we need is a community of people talking about spectra and the different strains, cultivars.
I agree 100%. One of the things that I do take pride in, I've created over 120 something strains, and I've grown over 400. And let me tell you, they all act differently. So for us to sit here and say anything over a blanket, UK cheese and AK-47 are not the same fucking plant. That's all I can tell you. They definitely respond differently. Even to the point where, some plants under the same lights will get bleaching, and then other plants won't. Same light, same canopy, same temperature, same humidity. This one plant's got bleached out leaves and that white stuff that it gets on top of the bud, and the other one's just crushing it. So it's definitely something that and I'll also tell you something. I love Instagram and I love YouTube, but I miss the boards. Overgrow and those places when guys would talk for a fucking year about a subject. I see any of those places. I mean, get on, Roll It Up still exists, but there's just so many trolls. But, one thing, and I say this to you guys all the time, not so much this subject here, but because I used to spend so much time, almost 2 decades on the boards, you can type Subcool in any subject and it'll find. You can find me. Find lots of information. And you guys, if y'all want to learn this stuff, not stuff that's current, get on those boards late at night and read those threads. I mean, you want to read some badass threads, go read 5 or 6 breeders argue about LED and HPS. And yeah, you got to put up with the shit talking and all that. But in between that, I mean, there's a thread on Overgrow that's 75 pages long about LEDs. I mean, Jesus, they hash it out. So the information is still out there. Most importantly, the one thing from my mouth that I want to portray before we go to break is that in the old days, I mean, and I'm going to dog them out. My first LED was a Lush light, and I just didn't get great results with it. And then half the time when I saw these people talking, I said, "So what they talked about?" And the first time I saw a cob, I was like, "Holy shit! It'll put your eye out." I mean, it is not a light bright. Okay, so don't be afraid to mess around with them. I mean, just because I run big lights, you see, I'm talking to these people. I'm thinking about putting them around the side of my grow, and if I could figure out how to hang them down in the center without having to become fucking Edison and inventing some shit, the mouse had me building a fucking rotating fucking LED column in my grow before chat, but the idea is there, and I was already thinking about hanging grids that could go down inside the canopy that pointed left and right. That would be very, very easy to do. So we're going to invest. By the way, if you guys don't know, my house burned down, and it sucks assholes. But in the biggest Ponzi scheme in history, I bought a house for $451. I worked really hard. I grew a shitload of weed legal in California, and I paid a shitload on my house. And it burnt down. And when I get all the checks cashed, when I figure out the whole wheelie dealy with Jilly, I had a shitload of money, and I'm old, I'm sick, and I'm going to use that money to have a good time. And most of that good time is going to be experimenting with cannabis and helping people in the cannabis industry, giving away weed, teaching people how to grow, and using that pool out there to do some experimenting with. So you're going to see some LED out there. When we come back from the break, we're going to talk more about lighting technology. I want to hear more from Dr. Allison and Growmau5. We're also going to hear from Nadeem with Bake Brothers. It's time for everybody to smoke a bowl, go to the bathroom, all that crazy stuff. We're going to listen to a little bit of something that I hope is coming soon with the federal government. And then the feeling the change.
They're looking at us sideways. It's time to worthless. Say it's current when the show's done. Real outlaws stand firm and don't run. They switch laws to benefit the rich ones, while some still struggling just to get some. Show my true colors every spot I roam. Stay united with the people so I'm not alone. Want us divided, root of evil, what they fighting for. Like they forgot that it was medicine, that's why we grow. Spreading my wings will get you high. Stand together, no need to pick a side. I'm a witness to the healing and I can testify. Game steady changing, I see the dragonfly. Life is like an ocean, I'm surfing the waves. I grew up in the dirt, so good luck throwing dirt on my name. Walking down the road that I paved, life's moving and I'm feeling the change. Life is like an ocean, I'm surfing the waves. I grew up in the dirt, so good luck throwing dirt on my name. Walking down the road that I paved, life's moving and I'm feeling the change. See the illusion, look beyond the scheme. Too much confusion, things ain't what they seem. Rules and regulations, conversation deep. Conflicts and contradictions overweave. Unnecessary police brutality. Might not be what you want to hear, but this is what I see. Stay positive, no matter what it be. In life you cross the bridge, you gotta pay a toll fee. What happened to the days when we were free? What happened to this economy? How many people in this world fit the same shoe as me? Walking thin ice in the triple-digit heat. We used to live the street, not doing harm. So why are police so amused with tearing down a farm? Ringing the alarm, some people wonder why. Game is steady changing, I saw the dragonfly. Life is like an ocean, I'm surfing the waves. I grew up in the dirt, so good luck throwing dirt on my name. Walking down the road that I paved, life's moving and I'm feeling the change. Life is like an ocean, I'm surfing the waves. I grew up in the dirt, so good luck throwing dirt on my name.
absolutely.
Walking down the road that I paved, life's moving and I'm feeling the change. You gotta read between the lines with the hidden message. No, every mistake is just another lesson. Once you learn, you can open up a new perspective. You can find the answer if you ask the right question. How can we stop all the stressing? The dirty lies, the tricks, who you impressing?
140 plus
I'm trying not to leave a negative impression. How about we switch sides and we change it
That's
to
a lot of
direction?
pheno running.
Keep it smooth and I never
That's a
go
lot of
against the
time.
grain. Legalize it to them and us, it ain't the same. It's obvious when we look at how it's written. It was made to cater corporations, not the ones who live it from day one. I placed one in post, thinking about what's gonna happen to my folks. Hope for the best and adapt as I ride. Chilling in my garden, I saw a dragonfly.
I have a spreadsheet somewhere. We're still working on it. That's a lot of things. It's crazy, right?
Life is like an ocean, I'm surfing the waves. I grew up in the dirt, so good luck throwing dirt on my name. Walking down the road that I paved, life's moving and I'm feeling the change. Life is like an ocean, I'm surfing the waves. I grew up in the dirt, so good luck throwing dirt on my name. Walking down the road that I paved, life's moving and I'm feeling the change.
Awesome. Welcome back from the break. Thank you, guys. Nadeem's in the channel, and time. I have to get something.
Subcool's got a weed cabinet, a whole cabinet in the kitchen.
I have a phone. Bet your ass I got a weed cabinet. So these are the gummy worms. These are 300 milligrams. And I'm gonna let Nadeem tell you about them when I eat them. These things are fucking delicious. I love them very much. These guys are a splash here locally in Arizona. You can't go anywhere without their product. It's actually hard to get your product sometimes in some of the stores because you guys are maxed out.
We're maxed out, man. We're in about 75 dispensaries here in Arizona, and I mean there's a lot of demand for edibles, believe it or not, in Arizona. You know, I think it makes up about 15% of the market here. It sounds small, but you'd be surprised at how many pieces it is. You know, we're putting out 10 to 15,000 pieces a month of whether it be gummies or portable THC syrup, and we're one of the only companies that offer strain specific edibles.
Mm-hmm.
You know, which carries over that people need specific strains for specific therapeutic benefits, or the terpenes, and so that's something that we don't want to overlook. And because we offer that as well as on-demand testing, there's some more protocols. There's just some more, you know, SOPs in our that we have to do in order to make all that happen. And it kind of it holds us back sometimes because we're not cutting corners, man. We're not gonna test one product and use those test results for the year and say, hey, our edibles tested 300 milligram. No, we're testing every single product. We test over 100 pieces a month.
Really?
You know, every single batch, every single strain, every single flavor. It's pretty gnarly.
Right. Now, so can you tell us a little bit about production? I mean, is it distillate, or can you even talk about how it's made?
Yep. So we use distillate. We do an alcohol extraction. We do process our own flower into distillate, and then we'll use distillate into edibles. I think over the past year, not including ourselves and the market in general, man, we've found that distillate is just it's a accurate base to work with. You know, whether you're reintroducing terpenes or isolating those from you are isolating those from the hash oil, but some companies will reintroduce terpenes from other companies. Some will reintroduce the actual terpenes that they extracted during the distillation process. But overall, it being a more concentrated form of hash oil, you know, we'll call crude, like your BHO, you know, or your shatter or whatnot, could be anywhere from 65 to 75% THC. And then you start doing distillate, and that can get up to, you know, 95% THC. So it's just for mathematical purposes and formulating, it's a lot more practical.
And one of the things I like about the gummies now, warning, I have a fucking tolerance that you guys wouldn't even like. You couldn't write about it. I ate 3,000 milligrams one night on a dare raising money for kids, and I just slept a little bit. But people like my brother, I mean, he took a bite off a bam cake a while ago, and he's about to fall off the chair.
He's actually asleep.
Yeah. But here's what my point was. With your products, you have these are 300s, you have 150s, you have a 75.
Yes.
Okay, so you have somebody that say needs to medicate all day long, and they don't want to smoke.
Right.
And they need a measured dose. They need 15 milligrams of cannabis for their morning medication. They can easily take a pack of these and pull out exactly. So this is a 30.
Yes, that is 30 milligrams per the one piece. And our 75 milligram and the 80 milligram, they're 15 milligram, or I'm sorry, the 75 and 150 milligram package, they're 15 milligrams each. So right, and there's 8 pieces in each package on the 150s and the 300s. We don't increase more candy. We literally double the amount of THC per piece of candy. But say someone needs to dial in their dose a little bit more, like more measured or more accurate, or they're new to cannabis, which is what I deal with the most. You know, we go to 3 to 4 dispensaries a week, and we set up what we call our education station. And we see anywhere from 300 to 500 patients a week and educate them about cannabis as they're walking in the doors through the dispensaries. And the biggest thing that I encounter is someone walks in and they say, "Oh, I don't do edibles." Oh, well, why not? You know, I had a bad experience. Okay,
because you ate a cookie somebody gave you.
Because you ate a cookie that's not homogenized right, you know, or they have a hot spot is what I like to call it. You know, a corner of the cookie that might have more medication than the other. So what we have is a pourable THC syrup. And every 1 milliliter of that syrup is 5 milligrams of THC. So given that the standard dose of THC across the nation right now that we're seeing in recreational states is 10 milligrams, you have the ability to use an oral syringe and go as low as half a milliliter, 2.5 milligrams. And believe it or not, we have patients that have a 2.5 milligram tolerance, and it absolutely amazes me. I'm jealous. I am jealous. I'm jealous.
But I'm happy for them that they can get results.
Right. But you know, the whole point is that it's something that can be measured orally. You know, anytime you can take a sublingual medication, especially something, you know, under the tongue, sublingual, it's just gonna get in the system much more efficiently, much quicker. You know, a digestible cookie brownie, they're awesome and I love them, but you know, you're going to lose 10% during the GI process, you know, rather than a mucal absorption or sublingual absorption where it's just overall more bioavailable.
Now, I was shocked to find out, because one of the things I figured out last night is I ate too much sugar. I mean, I ate a lot of sugar in my coffee. I ate a lot of sweet things, and I eat a lot of candy in this form. And I'm certainly no knock on the product. I mean, if you eat 1 pack, you're cool. But so I do want to cut down, and I was thinking about the pourable. And you said it's actually diabetic safe. I mean, because of the way
Yes.
it's made. You want to expand on what we're talking about, the brown?
I would love to, man. The base of that syrup is it's a brown rice syrup, so it's low glycemic. It's compared to corn syrup or whatnot. You're not going to have an insulin spike with the product like brown rice syrup. Okay, I'm not going to say it's sugar free because it's very, very minuscule amount of sugar in there compared to like corn syrup or agave nectar. But being lower on the glycemic index, it is therefore safe for diabetics to take. There's less than 2 grams of carb per dose. So per 10 milligrams, there's less than 2 grams of carbs, which is what a diabetic would look for.
Now, I don't know if he didn't. I don't know if you knew this, but he doesn't know when he came in, or he didn't indicate that I've already taken making cocktails with it. So you can the best that we started with Sprite. I'm gonna be honest with you, it's a little thick. Plus, I make it thick. I could use more liquid. I'm just trying to shoot it down. And so that was okay. And then one day I had some orange juice. Well, orange juice is sour. Man, I poured some of that cherry in there. Oh God. Oh man. So you can put a little bit of grenadine or maybe some cranapple or cranberry.
Absolutely.
And you can make a cocktail. You can make a mimosa that's got THC for it. And I've been drinking them outside on the deck just like somebody would have a cocktail.
And that's what's kind of nice about it. Once you know your dose, or you can withstand having a dose like that, it is very versatile. I know my dose is 25 milligrams. I comfortably can come on the show, talk to you guys. When I get over 50 milligrams, I start kind of like speaking cursive a little bit and my words blend together. But I know my dose is 25 milligrams because 1 milliliter, 5 milligrams, I basically took every 10 to 15 minutes over the course of an hour and just kind of found where I was. Now that I know my dose is 25 milligrams, I can put a teaspoon right into like you said, a glass of orange juice or whatnot and enjoy that rather than I'm going to eat this 25 milligram cookie or 50 milligram cookie and not know what it does to me. And aside the drinks, I love it when patients come up to us in the dispensary and tell us what they've done with our product. Like,
make an idea. Yeah,
they've made lemonade into ice cubes and put it in the punch bowl.
That would be great.
They've done pound cakes. They've done brownies, cookies. So they make their own edibles with it, which to me is fantastic.
That's smart. I guess you could cook with it within a reasonable amount.
We have people who bake with it. We have people who make their own candies with it, and we have an unflavored one as well. So
versatile. I mean, really versatile.
It really is. And that was our whole goal is my business partner and brother, we saw a lack of consistency on the market. We've been doing edibles here for about 7 years. Bake Rose has been here for 5. And when we're at these markets prior to the dispensaries or the farmers markets, and we see these 500 milligram cookies in a sandwich bag with an Avery label, all I could do is shake my head, because it's not true, because our 10 milligram or our 20 milligram, cookie is wrecking you compared to your 500 milligram cookie. So, and this is, back when testing was still trying to come around. It's getting a little better in Arizona, which is nice.
If we can get off topic a little bit, I know you have patients that have 2.5 and everything, but I personally, for somebody who's a lifetime user of cannabis, I think the new California law of 10 is fucking ridiculous. I mean, that
you think it's too low?
Yes, it's way too low. I mean, the people that I know that have cancer, they're going to have to buy way too much.
I definitely think it causes problems for manufacturing purposes. It being 100 milligram edible and, having kind of how Colorado is 100 milligram edible, individual 10 milligram servings. That is bullshit.
Hard.
I'll just be with you.
That hard. What you going to do? Make dots, tiny dots?
Absolutely. And especially for packaging and manufacturing purposes, it's more packaging. It's more labeling. It's smaller packaging. It just becomes a headache. But on the flip side, double-bladed sword, if you will, 10 milligrams, I've seen it influence people, and I've seen it, kind of put people back on their ass, if you will. And it is a psychotropic drug. It absolutely is in high doses. I'll give you an example. I had a brownie, just a couple months ago, because my ego got the best of me, guys. Don't let it. I had a brownie that was claimed to be 1,000 milligrams and didn't believe it. Well, I've been down the road before, and I tell you what, I ate it before I tested it, took it to the lab to get tested, and it sure was 1,000 milligrams. And I had to talk myself down. And anybody who anybody who was not familiar with that, I mean, you're talking a bad time.
Oh no,
You're
it's
talking
not
very-
fun to overeat.
Yeah.
It's not fun to overeat. The guys are talking about the story. I'll tell it real quick. One of the funniest stories is my buddy Pi, who's South Carolina, and we've been talking to him a lot. He's a gentleman that doesn't hear, and he came to one of my parties one night, and there was this young girl there who's really cute, and Pi's a little bit of a perv. So as soon as I opened the door, she was standing there, and he didn't take her eyes off her boobs the whole time that night. So a friend of mine was standing there with a plate full of cookies. They weren't just regular cookies. I mean, there's a whole fucking camera case full of keef in them. They were deadly cookies. I made them to try to fuck up all my grower friends. So he ate a bunch of them, and he had a really rough night, but we didn't know it until the next morning. So I got up early. I'll still get up early than I did back then. So I got up early. He was kind of sitting on the couch, kind of wobbly. And he goes, I think somebody slipped me something. I was like, nobody slipped you something here, dude, unless they told you. You know, there's plenty of drugs here, dude, but nobody was trying to fuck with you. He goes, my fucking meal weird as shit. I was like, well, how many cookies did you eat? Cookies. Yeah, the cookies that you ate when you came in the door. Oh, I ate a whole bunch of old fucking things. Yeah, well, that's fucking, I mean, we didn't measure them. We had no idea how much cannabis was in those. They were hash cookies. We had weed and hash in them. And my point is, you know, well, the one reason I do really like, especially your product, because I have bought some in the underground market. I've had people bring me things. I know when I rip open that pack of Big Brothers, it's 300. I know, and I don't sleep really well. We've talked about this millions of times. And if I eat this thing the right amount of time, which is about, that's a little early for me because of the show, but I know I'm going to sleepy at 10:30 or 11 o'clock at night, and I'll get a little bit of sleep. And that's what your product does for me.
Being a weed nerd for 8 years, man, I can't say how much that means.
That's all it is, man. I sleep. You know, I sleep. And I've tried a lot. I mean, that sounds like I'm polishing you, but I'm not. I've eaten so many products. I mean, Karen in California, she gave me the peppermint patties. Good product. Don't get me wrong. She had a 300 milligram patty, and a really good product. And so when I moved here, and by the way, in a fucking bullshit turn of events, I don't just not get to eat those edibles from Unforgettable Edibles anymore because I moved from California. That fucking changed the law. And she's a craft cannabis person. She makes them in her kitchen. Beautiful kitchen with all the stuff that needs to be done. No, fuck no, you can't make edibles in the kitchen no more.
Yeah. So she's love those things. So you're all about them, bro.
Delicious, man. And the poor woman's out of business. But I needed a consistent source. And what's strangely enough, I needed a 300 milligram consistent source. Yeah. And boom, there you are with the product. So thank you. One more question though: are they inside or is it outside?
So we don't make the gummy. We do we do put it on the outside, and we don't spray them. We don't use propylene glycol. We don't use any harsh chemical solvents. We actually hand coat our syrup over the gummy. You know, and then it's no secret. You know, we let people know. We don't want people thinking or thinking that we use propylene glycol to spray because it's just gross, man.
Oh, that's gross.
And by doing these hand batches, I mean, we make them in small batches, which is how we're able to ensure the consistency. Because once you start going bigger, you increase the margin for error.
I noticed one of your competitors. I got some in this that were all stuck together.
Yeah, we do our best to not
do that. Man. No, your stuff's never stuck together.
Yeah,
and I'm not talking shit. I'm just talking
about that.
I buy a lot of medibles around the world. I mean, anywhere I go, I have to medicate. So wherever I go, I have to find some edibles.
There's gummies on the market. There's syrups on the market. And what we pride ourselves in, other than our consistency, is that the syrup's not going to separate. So meaning you're not going to have this bottle with a bunch of medicine in the neck of the bottle.
And hash down in it.
Yeah, it's silly. It's absolutely silly. You'll see that. And most companies will make these syrups with an alcohol base because they, you know, that acts as a solvent for the hash oil. And with gummies, you know, it's like you just said, they're either clumped together or they're sticking on the bag, and nobody wants to lick their medicine off their bag. I mean, it's just gross.
No.
Is there a problem with an alcohol-based solvent for these syrups?
And not a problem, but you immediately are going to cut off, a portion of the consumers that don't want to consume alcohol, especially, and we get it quite often. People who are recovered alcoholics or even on probation, you know, they're anxious or they're nervous to take any alcohol-based products. And taste-wise, alcohol it does not taste well. But is alcohol great for bioavailability? Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Okay. So
I kind of noticed a trend in like this line in the sand of whether you're an alcohol user or a cannabis user, you know, and it seems to me like it's fairly commonplace to just be cannabis only.
Right. I think if you were going to say something.
Well, I just on that subject right there, it's kind of weird. I mean, it's not some secret that I was an alcoholic for about a year after, between the time I was diagnosed with my disease and now I lost my place. And I tell you guys this with all my heart and passion. The reason I became an alcoholic is because a fucking doctor convinced me that I had to give up cannabis. Now, is it smart for me to do dabs with a lung disease? No. But there's literally, as you were talking about the other day, cost benefit type situation. My life sucks without cannabis. It just does. I've been using it my entire life, and it changed who I am. And so I reached out for something else to change the calm, this whatever demon I have inside me that cannabis just fixes instantly. And so I reached out all these things. And it was until I made the decision, well, fuck it, I'm killing myself. I'm going to go back to weed. And instantaneously, I became the person I was when I smoked cannabis. And the reason I'm going here is because I heard the same exact thing from a friend of mine. He had cut down on cannabis because of his job. And he started going out at night and drinking beer with his buddies because it's okay to do that. And at the end of the year, he was having health problems. He's fucking fat. He felt like shit. And he rebelled. He said, fuck you guys. He went out and bought weed. And within a month, he lost some weight. Oh, yeah. He started smoking weed and he lost weight. And it's just because I think some of us are, whatever our temperament, the way we view things, I'm naturally geared to be a little high strung and a little intense. And everybody that knows me has seen it. If I don't get high by 11 or 12 o'clock in the daytime dealing with 2 phones and 9 email accounts and business and the feds and taxes and divorce and all the things I deal with, I lose my mind. I start acting like an idiot. And I'm actually falling out because of stress, walking around dealing with. So she's seen it. It's huge stress. And the only thing that changed is I actually stopped working for a few minutes, went outside, smoked 3 bowls. It wasn't like I did 1,000 bong hits. Right. And then I came back inside and everybody's like, Sub, you're okay? Right. And I'm like, I'm fucking great.
Right.
You're not
out of your head. Yeah. You're not slumped over.
And that's medication. I was going to a point. That's medication. If this is better than a Xanax or a Boost Bar or a Trazodone or a Seroquel or a shot of bourbon, yes, and it is non-harmful to anyone, and even me, as long as I use small amounts of cannabis, it doesn't hurt. I mean, obviously, I can't do dabs all day long. But the cost benefit about what the smoke does to your lungs for me, and the insane person I am without it is massive, and that's why one of the reasons that I'm so passionate about cannabis. My girl, if you guys haven't seen, my girl has a couple of things: IBS, Crohn's, GERD, and some other things. But my point is, when y'all see her smiling and everything, there's also the person that disappears from camera. And what you can't see, and I don't want you to see, is when I go back there and she's in such excruciating pain that she can't even speak. At first, I thought she was pissed off at me. I was like, you okay? She don't say anything. I'm like, I pissed this woman off, there's pain. And she gets these brutal hip pains and stuff. And I have walked back to the bedroom with my tray when she's laying on the bed in pain, this tray, which has CBD and some different extracts on it, and given her 2 or 3 hits. And within 4 to 5 minutes, she's back sitting in the chair smiling. Yeah. And if you've ever seen a friend, she's a friend of mine. And when you see a friend, you suffer. And for a person not to be able to get that, it's really tough. And the only thing that prevents her from getting it, not that she wasn't, because she's pretty savvy about it, is money. It's the cost of cannabis. And with the changing times, it's gotten worse. Yeah. I mean,
or legalities. I mean, my wrestling coach in Oklahoma was the first person that I'd ever seen that happen to. Use cannabis and within 5 to 10 minutes, like you're saying, be alleviated or find relief, be able to uncurl from the fetal position. And come to find out, he had Crohn's, and nobody knew at the time. Here we are 8-9 years later. Now we know, but that was the first person I'd ever seen actually smoke cannabis and get relief from it, and it intrigued me so hard. And that's why I ended up here in Arizona and met the crew that I did, and it's definitely propelled us.
I like it. And you guys have heard me say this before. I think these stupid son of a bitches that we're going to talk about in a little while in a Fed that won't admit it's medicine need to be locked in a room with a kid having a seizure. All I can say.
It's crazy how far we've come, man. From in the 80s, we were just taught that weed is a gateway drug, and it's actually come to find out it's an exit drug to get you off of liver and kidney destroying substances.
No, if you guys didn't see me, my friends saw me. Not a lot of people did, but some of my friends in this channel watched it all unfold. And just before I quit, I was toast, man. I was a corpse. You know, pharma and alcohol was killing me, and it's only been a year. Seriously, I was like, I'm a completely different human being. So cannabis saved my life multiple times. And if you haven't heard me say this is something that happened the other night. Oh, there might have been a little fungus involved in this revelation. But so like my house burned down, okay? So the only thing I had when I left my house was a postal box, this silver rolling tray, a dog, and a cell phone. I grew this motherfucking house. I grew a motherfucking Toyota Tacoma. I grew a motherfucking 370Z. And for this country that's shitty with their economy to prevent people from profiting, from helping people, because you guys know me, this ain't just about money. That shit's fun because I had a shitty couple years, still giving money and food and weed away left and right. And for the government and people to continue to prevent us from helping people and making money. I'm not embarrassed to say I make money. It pisses me off, and we're going to continue to push it down the throat. I wanted to give Allison a chance to talk about medibles a little bit. We talked so much about lighting. What is your thoughts on medibles and the use of medibles?
Yeah, so I had a question. Can you pass the gummy bag?
Yeah. They are all, let me tell you, the peach.
I wish I could try them.
Peach rings are yummy. The worms are the bomb. I was going to say something to Nadeem, and I don't want to make, I will tell you there is a difference between the 150s and the 300s on flavor. I mean, when you put a 300 in your mouth, there is something up. It's just like you're not at fucking the mall. Let me tell you, you're like, hey, my lips are getting kind of numb here.
And those are going to be the terpenes, man. That distillate and the terpenes.
Is that what it is? Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what's doing it then. Mm-hmm. That's crazy. So it's that strong.
No different than if you were to go
put ash in your mouth.
Hey, or you know, you ever grab, and I know you know this, if you ever grab an orange or a lemon and you squeeze it and you see those you know, those oils,
they'll burn.
They'll do it.
An orange will burn, actually. It's one of the cool things I saw. Well, cool.
But my question is, you know, it's really cool to hear you're doing full spectrum, or, you know, including terpenes in your edibles. You know, what sort of concentrations are you able to get to without messing with the flavor? Or are you, you know, is your point to encourage that strain flavor?
The point is to encourage the strain flavor to preserve the relief that certain strains will provide. For example, like the Granddaddy Perp, it's high in myrcene or myrcene, so we'll reintroduce that myrcene in it to give it and to preserve that indica-like effects. So that's why we introduce those terpenes back into it. If that answers.
Yeah. By
the way, Dr. Allison, if you're ever in Arizona, come by Misfit Sunday. Make sure you get some gummy bears.
Ooh. I'm going to.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, it's blown my mind seeing how when people consume smoking versus, you know, ingesting or eating where it goes through the liver, like how they can handle tolerances differently. You know, I've had people that could eat 1,000 milligrams and they're like, I don't feel anything. And then they have one little puff and then, you know, they're completely stoned. So that's just been really neat to see the differences.
It absolutely baffles me too, and I love collecting the data when I meet these patients, you know, weekly. And there's so many variables. There are, you know, let's say someone was a recovered alcoholic after, you know, 5, 10, 20 years. You know, they have a damaged liver. They're not going to convert THC to 11-hydroxy as efficiently as somebody who doesn't, or who has a healthy liver. You know, somebody doesn't have a gallbladder, so it just passes right through them. You know, we've encountered that quite a few times. Smoking, you know, long-term smoking of actual cigarettes, damaging the mucal or the membranes in your mouth, you know, not allowing absorption or the sublingual absorption to be as effective. So there's quite a few variables that we've encountered that dictate this, but in most scenarios or most situations, a 10 milligram joint cannot be compared to like a 10 milligram edible because of that digestion process or that conversion process of the liver to 11-hydroxy, which for those listening, 11-hydroxy THC is an active metabolite of THC, which is arguably 3 to 4 times stronger than THC. So a 10 milligram gummy bear, again, to a 10 milligram joint, you know, you're going to light that joint on fire. You're going to maybe lose some of it, you know, let's say 3 milligrams. So that 10 milligram joint now turns to 10 or to 7, but that 10 milligram gummy bear is 10 milligrams.
Got it. And edibles, they're a weird tolerance. The first time you eat them and knock your ass out, like I said, I eat a lot. I'm going to switch subject. He said the word terpenes several times. So I finally ordered some watermelon terps offline. Natural watermelon terps made from watermelon rind in the center. And the only thing I messed up, I ordered 2 bottles of it. I wish I would order a bottle of lemon. So you could mix them together to make it more sour. It's pretty damn cool. We took some of the THC crystals that we have, the lemon OG, and we put 1 teeny little drop in there.
That's all you need.
It's cool as shit. It's watermelon lemon OG. It's pretty unique. So, but I never knew. The reason I bought this is I've wanted to know if terpenes themselves were enjoyable to a human being like myself.
Right.
You know, does it just have to be cannabis? You know, because I like this.
There are,
but a little goes a long way, and the shit's so strong that like you wouldn't want to put it on everything. You gotta. It's really something that goes along with. Like as a matter of fact, just holding it. I mean, my hand now smells like watermelon. My arm smells like watermelon. But if you haven't messed with terps, it's pretty cool. Also, real quick, a personal note. I meant to call him. I want to give a shout out to Crazy Dago. I've been so busy, I hadn't had a chance to reach out to him in a while. Dago did me a fucking massive solid, opened up his door for me when I was my house burnt down and gave me a start. Also taught me this tech right here, which is live streaming on YouTube. So we wouldn't have the Weed Nerd Live if it wasn't for Dago. So shout out to Dago. And Weed Nerd Live, the Weed Nerd camera, the camera I use for 675 episodes with the white mounts and everything. I lost the cord in the fire, and don't ask me why I didn't go on Google, Amazon before, but I have a cord again, and I'm going to start uploading old school Weed Nerd videos again on the old channel because I can't upload live until they unban me. And I don't understand why live is so much more hazardous than recorded video, but I'm going to start shooting Weed Nerds again with the old camera. So look forward to those. Now, someone told me that you can download off the Windows site a Windows Movie Maker, change add-on or something like that for Movie Maker. So we need to look in that matter. But this, one of you guys told me about some program, Shotcast or something like that you download. Fuck you. It's trying to install a virus on my computer every time. It's trying to extend the extensions in my damn browser so that I don't search on Google. I search on Excite or some stupid shit. And why do you assholes keep telling me to download this thing that obviously is giving me some shit? Like, sub, you need to download. I'm trying to download. It's like, you are installing an extension. Do you want to do this? Well, no. So if anybody can get me this Shotcast shit without changing an extension on my computer, I would appreciate it. And or something that works like Movie Maker, because I'm done.
I got something for you.
Do you? Thank you.
I did my first 5 or 10 videos on Movie Maker, and I was like, I felt like the infomercial guy. There has to be a better way. Like, it just takes, you know, you've got all your clips lined up and it goes to compile them. It just takes so long. So I transitioned, and this isn't what I use today. If you really want to become, you know, like a good small filmmaker, you really need Adobe Premiere Pro. But that's going to take you some learning. You know, it's going to take you it's pretty easy to learn, hard to master. But what I'm talking about is a program called Wondershare by Filmora. And it's got the same basic Movie Maker strategy, you know, like you still splice and butt everything together in a really similar manner, but it's a little more intuitive, and it's got some cool effects packs, and text is easier, and just everything that Windows Movie Maker does, it does it a little easier. It's about $40, you know, but like, who gives a shit? Like, people that want to be, I want to become a YouTuber, but I don't want to pay any money for editing software. I'm like, all right, buddy. Good luck getting past 100 subs.
Dude, man, you almost need to go to class.
Yeah.
Fuck. I mean, come on.
And you have to keep going to class.
And you need to keep going to fucking. But no, I get it. I get it. Back in the old days before they fucked up with Windows 10, you know, friends would give you a CD and it'd have the whole fucking Adobe suite on it, CS3, the Lightroom. Nowadays, I don't know, that shit don't happen no more. So, and on another subject, I was talking to some geek friends of mine today, and what a shitty situation we're in. I was like, well, so everybody agrees Windows 10 sucks? Yeah. Well, so what's going to happen? You know, is Windows 11 better? Not really. Well, why the fuck do we go back to 7? Because I could use it anyway. I digress. Drives me nuts. So, all right. So, Medibles, I really am a big fan of them. I think that you guys check it out. If you are in Arizona, make sure you check out Bake Brothers. I don't need to advertise for the guy because they can't make any more damn Medibles. Keep them all the time. Let's see, Madiger, did we have any questions come in this week? We usually don't, but it is time for me to ask that real quick.
I did see one question that rolled through earlier, and it just says, is there any detriment to using an LED and an HPS combination?
Absolutely not. There is no benefit in it. There's no detriment, bro. Sorry. I had to break. I was like, I'll pop a gummy too, or whatever. But I'm, hey, you guys love this dick measuring thing. I'll do 1,000 milligrams. Yeah, I do 25 milligrams and I'll just get weird, dude. So when I put out my best content, it's just get weird. But what were we saying? Oh, detriment. Yeah. Not only is there no detriment, but adding a bluer LED to an HPS, you can, even if you're already light bleaching, even if you've got full chloroplast saturation, filling out the spectrum will allow the plant to take more light. Would you concur, Dr. Justice?
I concur.
Great show on lighting tonight. I do appreciate you guys. Make sure you guys come to the after show tonight. It should be coming on at 9. We will be talking about lighting further and also talking about something I'm fixing to get to. But real quick, just a couple of cool stories. I love this. What you smoke in Vegas, unfortunately, stays in Vegas. Vegas has set up specialty boxes in the airport so that when you leave, you can put your recreational or medical marijuana in the fucking garbage can, but yet they can't get it back out. Only fucking Vegas. We'll be like, hey, put your cocaine, put your Quaaludes, put them in the box, put them in the box, put them in the box. Great.
No reentry.
No reentry. Just in a weird story, that's funny. The guy who played Barney the dinosaur now runs a tantric sex business, and apparently he's so busy he can't keep up. In more serious stuff, I've been studying something for the last week or two that's just really got me pissed off, and that is the reclassification of cannabis as a Schedule I drug by the federal government, and more importantly, the DEA, because the government's really in favor of. Most politicians are in favor of. All of us are in favor of it. All the doctors in favor of it. Fuck taxpayers, everyone. There's one really pissed off fucking Steve Urkel motherfucker in somewhere that's really fucking it up. So basically the circle is that in order to change the scheduling, they have to perform testing. And they have to perform testing on a product that's federally illegal. So they won't test it. It's like this one guy's like this asshole with his pants pulled up to his navel. He's like, no, we're not going to test it. Weed's illegal and it's bad for you. What the fuck? It's billions of dollars at stake here and people's lives. So if you look into it, just last week, DEA Chief Chuck Rosenberg made headlines when he declared marijuana is not medicine during a speech at Cleveland, Ohio. He went in to say, if it turns out that there's something in smoked marijuana that helps people, that's awesome. But let's run it through the Food and Drug Administration process. Let's stick to the science on it. Yet we've seen dozens of headlines stating that cannabis has been proven as an effective treatment for various forms of epilepsy, PTSD, chronic pain, and much more. So if scientists, credible labs, and in some cases even the FDA, are coming out and saying cannabis has medical value, why is the DEA still unwilling to reschedule the drug? And to understand why cannabis remains illegal, you have to go back to the 70s. So signed on October 27th, 1970, the Controlled Substance Act declared war on drugs that were still experiencing consequences of a 5-decade war. So one of which recently given new life by AG cocksucking bastard Jeff Sessions. In order to evaluate, regulate, and enforce the drug policy, President Nixon established the FDA and the DEA, and the DEA is charged with evaluating the drug, regulating testing procedures, and appropriate. Why hasn't the FDA been able to convince the DEA that cannabis contains medicinal properties and value? They have several times by granting FDA approval to synthetic drug cannabis like Marinol and Syndros just last year. So the FDA seems pretty fucking convinced that there's at least something medically valuable in cannabis. So why hasn't the DEA rescheduled it? The DEA wants more evidence. However, in order to collect that evidence, the institution wishing to study cannabis must navigate miles of red tape with minimum guidance. Assuming they can reach the point of actually needing cannabis to study, researchers hit another hurdle when they find out that there is only one provider of cannabis for the federal testing purpose, which leaves them with little diversity in the study. Not to mention that cannabis they cultivate is relatively poorly grown. And y'all all know where this shit's grown. It's that fucking mystery place in Mississippi where supposedly G13 came from. But the truth of the matter, it's a bunch of dumbasses growing ditchweed and under shitty lights and under city conditions. There's no ganja farmers there, I can assure you. So even though evidence, advocacy, and acceptance is all-time high, the ability to impact change remains a lopsided game. As business operators, consumers, and patients, it is imperative to understand the process behind the change and adjust our approach to legalization by enlisting local leaders to make sure that idiocy voices are heard in Washington. So we can talk about this more in the after show. I did not realize that we hadn't even thought about testing it. I didn't realize that my friends are going to fucking jail because some idiot can't take a plant matter into a lab and test it. I mean, that is insanity. And
I tell you, sorry.
Go ahead.
I just want to tell you, and I know this is bleak and it's pessimistic, but I'll tell you why cannabis will not be rescheduled under this administration. You know, a Forbes report back in November put the cannabis legal sales industry at somewhere around $6.7 or $6.8 billion, which is a tremendous amount of money. Do you know what the private prison industry brought in last year?
$30 billion.
$624 billion.
Jesus fucking.
An order of 100 times more money than cannabis. Do you know where Jeff Sessions' mutual funds are invested right now?
Yeah.
Private prison industry.
You can bet. Oh, God.
Yeah. Jeff Sessions does have shares in 2 mutual funds that include holdings in 2 leading private prison companies. So it sucks major ball sacks, dude. But, you know, until the cannabis industry is pushing 629 I fucked that up. The profits were 629. It's a $4.8 billion industry. So my whole thing is fucked. Everything I just said doesn't make sense. They're actually neck and neck. I'm sorry. I messed that up. I'm sorry. I messed that up. $629 million profits, $4.8 billion industry. So actually cannabis eclipses the private prison.
Which is why, Mouse, and this is going to turn the tide. I'm so glad you took me to this transition. So one of the investors that is working with us on one of the projects that I can't talk about yet, it's an undisclosed contract. He sold onlinegaming.com. He has $7 billion fucking dollars. One human being, and he wants to grow my weed, and he wants to grow a fucking shitload of it. So Overgrow is taking on a new thing here. Our new contract is to grow tons of cannabis and distribute it here in Arizona, Nevada, Southern California. So don't give up yet. Oh, fucking Subcool ain't gone yet. And we still growing cannabis. And all my friends are still growing cannabis. And that mission, that dream of overgrowing the government, it ain't stopped. Everywhere I go, I see people growing weed. And more importantly, I see people feeding their families with weed.
Absolutely.
Putting their kids through college. I put my kids through school with weed, pitch my credit with weed. Hell, continue to pay for my family with weed. So we have to keep pushing the envelope. Not everybody can do it. I don't want to see Dr. Allison out there being crazy and doing some of the shit I do, but she can back us with research and science and coming on the Weed Nerd Live Show. Thank you very much.
That's right. Yeah, but politics drives me crazy. A lot of it, as you guys know, doesn't make sense. It's backed from things that doesn't make sense. But what can we do except just keep pushing our local leaders as much as we can, and do what we do. And when it does go all over the states to grow, we got to do it efficiently and grow at a low cost. So that's what hopefully some of my science can do and help the future growers.
Oh, we didn't even talk about grams per cubic foot and 2-tier ops and how. Oh man, damn it!
Come back.
LED point two.
Let me just throw this out for any commercial growers that are listening out there. What really grabbed the ears of my owners was being able to say, hey, I'm going to take, just let me have one room. I'm going to turn 36 lights into 80. And they're like, how are you going to do that? Well, it's by being able to use LEDs, and even if you want to consider, all right, well, LEDs, they produce the same as HPS. In my studies, they produce more, but even if you're considering them being equal, I was able to take a 36 light room and turn it to 80. So, that right there, that made our ROI, non-existent. I think 2 grows and we were able to pay back that light fixture cost.
Cool.
Dude, The metrics are so messed up, Allison. Everybody's talking about what'd you pull per light, bro. You getting 4 a light, bro? And it's a different, it's not even the same league. It's a totally different sport when you're talking about a 3-tier op and you're talking about how many grams you pull out per cubic foot of grow. It's like, you got to HVAC the space, you got to pay the rent, you know, all the environmental controls. Obviously you're going to need some more staff for the additional canopy size. Yeah. But otherwise, it's like, it's just the metrics. We're not even talking the same language here in this industry. And I think the open-minded people and the people doing the research, like Dr. Justice and others, they're the people that are going to prevail, you know, because it's science, baby.
It's science, baby. I like it. Well, like I say, let me grow 50 pounds in my pool room, and then we'll change out some LED lights and see what we can do.
Cool.
Do it.
I'm going to do it.
Too cool.
Thanks to all our guests. I appreciate everything. I wanted to say one thing I've been waiting to say to the show. It's not some big announcement or anything, but I will say this. All the meds that I have here, except for Bake Brothers, are not tested. We don't test our cannabis here in Arizona. We don't test our hash. We don't test any product. There's no fucking telling what the patients are going to be consuming here in Arizona. And it's just part of something that people don't talk about here. Arizona is somewhat as the Wild West, you know. Everybody's running around with back pain. That's everybody has a license here, but it's a lot deeper than that. And the one thing that very possibly will happen, it looks like our license contract is going to go through, and we're going to start producing cannabis here. First THCA crystal sauce, terps, and soon flowers. And I can tell you one thing: we're bringing something to Arizona first and Nevada second, called the Dank Standard. And when you go and you buy a product that's got my name on it, or the Subcool Seeds name, you can bet your ass it's going to be tested. And I'm proud of this for a reason. I've been eating a lot of products and smoking a lot of stuff. I smoke cannabis from dispensaries that haven't been tested.
Absolutely.
You know it. You live here.
Yep.
And I'm not dogging anybody. I'm just telling you, when you go buy a jar of weed here, you ain't got a fucking clue.
Nope.
It could have Avid, Azamax, SM90. We don't know. And so I'm not just proud that I'm going to be doing it, but how fast do you think the competition is going to start testing their flowers? When my box is sitting there with a big red sticker on it that says tested and safe. So that's the new thing that I have a passion for. There's medical patients here in Arizona, a lot of elderly people with conditions, and they definitely can't take contaminated medicine. And so that's my new push, clean medicine called the Dank Standard. And we're going to continue to develop that as well as curing processes. So keep watching the Nerd Show Live, Facebook, the Instagram, the YouTube and the Instagram. Madger, how many days before the other YouTube comes back?
I don't know exactly days. It's somewhere between April 10th and April 15th. It's somewhere in that range.
Sounds like a 420 show.
420.
It'll be back, I believe. Because let's see, next week we've got Smart Pots and Mr. Soul, and then it rolls. So I think that episode somewhere right in there is going to be the Quest dehumidifiers and Blue Planet nutrients are going to be somewhere right there.
Great. That's going to be fun. All right, guys. Thank you guys so much. After show and a little while, come check out. We'll talk about lighting, politics, all that crazy stuff. Thank you guys so much for watching the show. We're going to go out with a little bit of Mendo Dope.
Pleasure meeting you guys.
Thanks
for having me.
That's what I think. That's a lot. I got $120.
Born and raised, we are rooted in the emerald tribe. It's a way of life here that we tell them why. Legalize weed, CBDs, keep them alive. Until the past, cultivating is a felony crime.
Support my activism. I'm taking hits like Kenny Estes, Rowdy, Mary, and Eddie. Let me get this out to the city so they can live. Felonies are being committed while doing this.
Mendocino is the county I'm stepping in. The risks that we take just to bring them their medicine. We better ring blowers like Pete Smith. We country, Northern California, Green Tree,
Live black, induce this, edibles, cannabinoids, healing in different type of forms. You don't believe hidden treasure. No
THC with the watermelon crystal?
No, that's CBD.
Okay.
This is, we smoke most of it. That's it. Just a little bit light. It sure smells good.
Yeah, absolutely.
But just a teeny bit. Too much is weird. Thank you, guys.
Oh, gee, thanks for having me, man. I'm a little bit embarrassed that I fucked that up, but I'm reading a little further on Business Insider, and it looks like